Hello everyone. In this hands-on lab, we are going to get started with Google Compute Engine in Google Cloud Platform. Specifically, we are going to create our first virtual machine in Google Compute Engine. So let's go to navigation menu on the top left section, and let's go to Google Compute Engine, and let's click on VM instances. And here you can see that Google Compute Engine lets you use virtual machines that run on Google's infrastructure. Let's click on Create Instance. The first thing, as you can see, is to give the name of the instance. Let's choose another name. Let's say my first VM, my first virtual machine. We can also add labels for this instance. Let's click on Add Labels and add label. For example, environment, let's say the web environment. We can also add another label. Let's say learning. Let me say GCE, Google Compute Engine. Let's click on Save. And as you can see, the labels are attached here, environment web and learning GCE. So this is how you can add labels. The next thing is to configure region and zone. You can see by default, Google Compute Engine uses the US West 4 Las Vegas and US West 4B zone. So we can click on this region and see the list of regions. You can see Americas, and you can see the Europe. You can also see the Middle East and the Asia Pacific. Let's go and choose the US Central 1 in Americas, US Central 1. And inside this US Central 1 region, you can see the list of zones. Basically, in one region, there are at least 3 or more zones. You can see we have 4 zones. So let's click and continue with US Central 1A. The next thing is a machine configuration. You can see there are different kinds of machine families like general purpose, compute optimized, and memory optimized. So general purpose is for machine types for common workloads, optimized for cost and flexibility. However, compute optimized is for high performance machine types for compute intensive workloads, and memory optimized is for large memory machine types for memory intensive workloads. So let's continue with general purpose, and here you can see we can select the series. For example, there are 2 generations, first generation and second generation. In first generation, we can select the N1, but you can see in the second generation, you can see the list of generation E2, N2, N2D, T2A, and T2D. So let's continue with N1. We can also select the machine type. You can see we can choose the custom, shared core, standard, high memory, or high CPU. So let's continue with simple N1 standard 1. And another important thing that we need to configure is a boot disk. As you can see, if you click this, if you hover this, you can see that each instance requires a disk to boot from. So we can select an image or snapshot to create a new boot disk or attach an existing disk to the instance. Let's click on this change. And here you can see the public images, custom images, snapshots, archive snapshots, and existing disks. Inside the public images, we can select the operating system. As you can see, the default is Debian, but we can click on here and we can select the CentOS or Ubuntu, for example, or Windows Server. So let's continue with the default. And we can also select the version as well as the boot disk type. Here you can see several boot disk types. We can also change the size of the boot disk here. By default, it's 10. If you have an image, you can see you can go to custom image and select here your image, but as you can see, I don't have any image. You can also select the boot disk type in custom images as well. So you can go to snapshots, and if you have any snapshots, you can here see. As you can see, there are no snapshots in this project. So let's click on cancel and continue with default. We can also configure service account. By default, Google Compute Engine VM instance use the default compute service account. But if you click here, you can see the list of service accounts. This is my first service account, Terraform GCP are the service account that I have created earlier. So I would recommend you to continue with default compute service account, since this is just an example, the hands-on lab. So you can also configure access scopes, but we are going to continue with default. We can also add firewall. For example, we can allow HTTP traffic, which means that all others outside of this the user can access to our app. So let's click on allow HTTP traffic. We can go to advanced options here, also configure networking, disk, security, management, and sole tenancy. But since this is our first virtual machine, let's keep it as simple and let's continue with by default. So before we click on create button, you can see on the right section the monthly estimation cost, for example $25.27. That's about like 0.03 hourly. So you can estimate your cost by changing these configurations. So before we create, again, I'm going to show you another trick. If you click on this equivalent command line, you will see the same configuration of the VM instances using the command line. For example, if you copy this, and let's close this. If you go to activate Cloud Shell, if you click here and if you paste it, it will take a bit time. So it's connecting to the Cloud Shell. You can see first thing you have to do is gcloud config set project and your project ID. Here you can see my first project. You can here copy your project and gcloud, just run the gcloud config set project and project ID, and after that you can see it will confirm you. So you can basically copy and paste the configuration that you copied earlier. In my case, this one, equivalent command line. Here, if you click on this, and you can just copy this equivalent command line. If you paste it here, it will create the same VM instances. So we'll talk about it later again. Now let's create using the Cloud Console. Let's click on create. So as you can see, my first VM is running. It's now creating. It will take about 1 or 2 minutes to create this virtual machine instance. You can, while it's creating, you can click on refresh. You can see it's showing me the green check, which means it's now the instance is running. So you can see the zone, you can see the internal IP and external IP. If you click this instance, you will see the details about this instance. For example, basic information. You can see the instance ID, creation time, zone, instance template. There is no instance template so far. You can see the labels that we attach it. You can see the tags. We don't have any tags. You can see machine type, networking, firewall rules, network tags, boot disk, and other detailed information about the VM instance. You can go to observability, OS info, or screenshot. What is more, you can also edit this instance if you click on edit, and you can edit the labels. For example, you can add labels, you can manage tags, and you can also configure the firewall rules. So this is how you can edit your VM instance. Let's click on cancel, and let's go back. Here you can see the SSH. You can also SSH to this instance. If you click on SSH, it will create a new pop-up window. Let's run some basic commands with this SSH. So it will take a bit time to transferring, as you can see, it's transferring SSH. It's now establishing connection to the SSH server. So you can click on this bigger menu and you can see that you can configure by going to settings, and you can, for example, change the font size. You can see it's the largest. You can select the large or medium by your preference. So let's go settings and let's go to font size and let's make it largest. So for example, we can run some basic commands. Let's say, for example, who am I? So it will show you my account, simple GCP. You can also run the command pwd, which is a current working directory. Let's click on it and you can see it's a home, simple GCP. If you run the ls, it will show nothing because you don't have anything inside this directory. So this is how you can SSH for this instance. Let's click on exit, and we can also click on 3 dots and stop the VM instance. You can also suspend. Suspend is nothing but pause. You can also reset the VM instance. You can delete it, and you can also view the network details. We can also create a new machine image using this VM instance. We can view logs, monitoring. So this is how you can create your first virtual machine in Google Cloud Platform. These were the simple virtual machine instance. In our next videos, we are going to deep dive into the VM instances, instance templates, instance groups. So thank you very much and see you in the next video.